American Abhijit Banerjee has made fellow Indians of the world over proud after he became one of three to win the Nobel Prize for Economics this year. Mr. Banerjee and his co-winners Esther Duflo and Michael Kremer have won the prize for their work in fighting global poverty. A lot of Mr. Banerjee and Esther Duflo, who happens to be his partner's work, is based out of India. In fact, Mr. Banerjee was seen speaking about India and the economic slowdown just last week at a lecture in the United States. He was sharing the dais with another eminent economist and former central banker to India, Raghuram Rajan, whose comments at that very lecture have caused quite a stir. Rajan was quoted as saying majoritarian nationalism is taking India down a dark and uncertain path. While Rajan blames demonetization and the implementation of GST for the slowdown in the economy, Abhijit Banerjee has been one of the 108 economists who raised questions on the credibility of government data in March this year itself. He's also had quite a bit of critique over demonetization. So what is the message we should be taking and listening to from these top economists whose voices seem to be getting drowned out in political allegations and counter-allegations because they seem critical to the current government? Is the government taking the right advice on board? To speak more on this, I'm joined today by Gopal Krishna Agarwal, national spokesperson and actually heads the economic cell for the BJP, Pooja Mehra, author and journalist, and Mukund Padmanabhan, senior journalist, also joins us on the show this evening. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Agarwal, I will give you the first response to some of the questions we've raised, and the fact that very eminent economists, Raghuram Rajan and now Abhijit Banerjee, who's won a Nobel for his work in economics, have questioned some of the things that have been done by this very government in the past and the things that have led to the current slowdown. Do you think that we are taking on board the right advice when this advice is available from Indian origin economists that the world is celebrating?
Tamanna, I would like to say about Mr. Raghuram Rajan, he had every chance. For 3 years he was heading the RBI, he had every chance to implement what was in his mind and what his guidance and the advice was. So, now giving an advice, that time he should have given, that is what I want to say, for all the advice. You can at any point of time may find some of the challenges and critical analysis, but economy is just taking decisions and choosing options, and when you choose a particular option, you forego some of the other options which may have benefited. So, ultimately what happened before this was that there was a policy paralysis. There were certain problems which had to be tackled in the economy: concentration of wealth, policy paralysis, corruption, leakages, gaps in the tax compliances, etc. Those challenges were there in the economy. From there we have moved to a situation where these have been met by our Prime Minister for current government, and still I would say I agree that there are still many challenges because of global slowdown, also because of certain factors.
Mr. Agarwal,
in the country also,
let me come to the question.
Changes,
no, that's what you
new
are saying.
Avenues of
Mr.
industries
Agarwal,
are
please,
coming.
please. I'll tell you why I'm asking these questions. And this is a day that we're all celebrating Abhijit Banerjee. He's Indian American. He's an American citizen, but we're all celebrating. A lot of his work is based out of what he's done in India. All top leaders, including the Prime Minister, has congratulated him. But I'm just juxtaposing. Over the weekend, we had a senior union minister say effectively that there's no slowdown because 3 movies have made 120 crore rupees in a single day. People have bought that much, those many tickets. He of course withdrew those remarks soon after. And on the other hand, here you have top economists who are pointing out to the genesis of a problem and solutions. Abhijit Banerjee has a 5-point solution in his lecture last week. My only question to you, Mr. Agarwal, and it's not about politics, it's about are we and is this government ready to listen to all of the great advice out there?
Definitely, Tamanna. You see, we GST. There are certain issues. There are complexities in a country with 130 crore population, diverse culture, diverse terrain, geographical areas. There are, and the time frame within which we want to squeeze some of the important decision. That's also an important. You can wait for 10 years and go for a very good groundwork for GST, but we have wasted 70 years in the country. Those questions are related to past people, but it is not that we have to move ahead. That's very important. But all the still
Okay.
36 meetings have taken about the GST council. We have tried to incorporate everything, but what I want to tell you is, after even the budget exercise, a finance minister is regularly doing steps, taking steps, even taking such a big step like reducing corporate tax, bringing it down. So, how can you say the government is not listening? The problems,
Okay.
you can say
One
that
minute,
all
1 minute.
problems have not been
No,
solved.
no,
I
1
agree
minute.
that all problems of the economy are not been
Comments
solved,
that Raghuram
but
Rajan
you
has
cannot
been,
call
1 minute,
it.
let me get Pooja Mehra in. Let me get Pooja Mehra in. The kind of comments that Raghuram Rajan
I do not
has been,
Tamanna, 30 second more.
no, no,
30.
sir, I think it's
No,
only fair.
Tamanna,
It's been
30
like
second
5
more.
minutes since we
I
started the show. No one else
respect
has
Mr.
spoken.
Abhijit Banerjee.
Yes.
No, no, but 10 seconds. I appreciate Mr. Abhijit Banerjee. Whatever his advice are, definitely government will take cognizance.
Okay.
We are taking, but for Raghuram Rajan, we do not agree, because he had every time to implement what he had. He has failed as
I'm going to get
banker.
okay. Let me get
The
let me
crisis
get
in
let
the
me get
financial
Pooja Mehra
sector,
in. Let me get
the
Pooja
way he
Mehra
managed,
in.
we do
So
not
Abhijit
subscribe.
Banerjee is okay because he's won the Nobel now. He's won the Nobel now, of course. But he was part of the team that advised the Congress Party on Nyay before this. He's been critical about demonetization, and we've just put out what he said about the economy. My point is Pooja, will we be able to take on some of the advice that the best minds are giving us and want to give us, just because we don't like their politics, maybe?
It seems highly unlikely, Tamanna, because I think it's extremely unfair for Mr. Agarwal to say about Dr. Raghuram Rajan that he was free to implement, what he thought the economy needed, because he has himself said, and the Prime Minister has not refuted what he has written, that he orally and the Reserve Bank of India in writing recommended to the Prime Minister of India to not go ahead with demonetization. And if he wanted to go ahead with demonetization, what were the preparatory steps needed? Now, he did do all that was within the realm of possibility for him to recommend to government, and the government chose to not listen to him. And this is only one example. We have so many examples of so many qualified, professional, technically trained economists giving advice to the Prime Minister, to the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, to the Finance Minister, but the government just does not accept that advice. Mr. Agarwal was just talking about GST. Former Chief Economic Advisor.
How do you know that we are not accepting it?
Mr. Agarwal, please do not interrupt me. The Chief Economic Advisor wrote a complete report on what the GST's design and rate structure should be. He wrote a report because this committee was appointed by the government of India. That report was not accepted. The recommendations were not accepted. Instead of that, a completely different GST rate structure was evolved. And there was no effort on the part of the center to tell the states that are ruled by the same political party as the center is to agree to what the report suggested. So I'm not sure how this charge can be made against technical advice coming from economists that they're not making they're not making their recommendations to government, or they're not implementing. Economists do not implement. Implementation is always by government. Economists can only make recommendations, and it's for the government to accept or reject. Okay. And the second point I want to make about Abhijit Banerjee is, Abhijit Banerjee, the government could have till today, or even today, the government can go and invite him to make recommendations on his area of expertise.
Yes.
Why has the government not done it? Why are they waiting for economists to offer suggestions? If the opposition can invite suggestions from economists, technically trained economists. Why has the government not done it? Who has the government nominated on the Reserve Bank of India's board? We know who these individuals are.
Yeah.
Has any economist?
That's actually you've hit the nail on the head, Pooja. You've hit the nail on the head, because the politics is on one side of it, and Nyay tanked like a stone at the bottom of the river electorally. And Abhijit Banerjee was part of the team that talked about it. But the same man has done work in uplifting global poverty, which now the Nobel Committee has recognized. Let me get your view in Mukund. Let me just get Mukund Padmanabhan in. Let me just get Mukund in. Let me get Mukund in into a debate which is getting quite heated. Where do you stand on this, Mukund? The basic question is that even if you don't like what they're saying right now, do we as a nation now need to listen to all of these guys and all of this wealth of knowledge that is out there?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. On the issue of demonetization, there's pretty much a consensus now. If you leave aside, some people who are just openly batting for government or within government, that it hasn't done any good for the economy. I think there's there's broad consensus on this. As far as GST, it's interesting that more and more voices have come out that the manner in which it was implemented has had a result. We've had the Prime Minister's chief economic advisor, Vivek Devroy, say the other day that there's that you need to simplify the system, have 3 rates and so on. So, I mean, I think these are more or less settled issues in my view, that anyone with some degree of independence would accept. But I'm not quite sure whether we can just say listen to the economist's view, because economists have a wide variety of views, and not everybody may, there might be a greater degree of consensus about what demonetization did and what GST has done, because that's in the past. There's probably a less degree of consensus on how we should go forward, and this is, I think, the nature of the game. It's when it comes to what should be done, there's a greater divergence of views, and I think at the end of the day, it depends on who you listen to.
No, but let's get a little more specific about these two particular gentlemen we're talking about. At the start of the day, we decided we were going to discuss Raghuram Rajan's comments, but then of course Abhijit Banerjee, who was very much at that lecture and has also given his own views, has won the Nobel, has worked in global poverty. The broader picture, Mr. Padmanabhan, is you see instances like Mr. Subramanian, Arvind Panagriya, a lot of foreign trained top economists who have found their way out of this government and then have chosen to give their views or their critique once they're out of the system. I think Arvind Subramanian would be the latest case. So, which is why the question and the sense that are we as a government and a country willing to listen to things that critique our moves? And if we are not, then what? Now, if 108 economists write in and say that, please make sure there's credibility of data, it was largely ignored at that point. It was in March this year. Now, one of them goes on to win the Nobel. Then you need to go back and question whether there is a problem.
Yeah, I think there is a problem. I think Raghuram Rajan did make the point about over-centralization. As you know, and I'm coming back to demonetization here, this was something that even senior cabinet colleagues of the Prime Minister wasn't aware of. It was as much a shock to them. So it isn't as if every major policy has been the result of a great deal. I mean, he's made this point himself during the lecture that it's too centralized, it's too much with the PMO, And there is a case for decentralization. You can't run something of the size of India like you would run a state. That kind of micromanagement is not possible. And I think that's a fair comment on, and that's linked to this idea of not listening into too many voices, I think.
Gopal Agarwal, you've listened patiently to what both Pooja and Mukund Padmanabhan have said. Thank you for that patience, rare in a politician, which is why now you have a complete, platform to respond to all of those points. I hope you take it in the right spirit, because it's a very important discussion. Today, when, Abhijit Banerjee, and we're playing those slides, he says that reduce the control from PMO, just let me finish this point, increase Narega wages, go for quantitative easing, no point just reducing interest rates, it's not working in any case. I mean, maybe we should pick up the phone and tell him, hey, can you come and give us your views?
Tamanna, we are not saying that we do not respect the views, and how do you say that we are not listening and not acting on them? So many changes, you cannot just say that one person's view has to be listened and implemented. So when we are implementing GST, there are so many views we have to incorporate. Why we can have a single rate of GST, what is stopping us? But there is a consensus that we need, because a diverse country, we need multiple rates on different commodities, we need different indirect taxes. So then there was an issue of GST network, some compliances issues. Then a country like India, there are MSMEs, small businesses, they want to be out of the system because of compliances cost. So you are in a system moving toward that. There are problems. I am not saying that economy is not facing problem. Economy is facing problem. We are actively trying to resolve it. And you cannot say that one person's advice has to be listened and he has veto power on everything.
I'm not suggesting.
So that's
I
what
don't
I
think
am
I ever
only
said
telling.
that. I don't think I ever said that.
Why
now
Mr.
now listen
Raghuram
to
Rajan
everything.
always talks out of turn?
Out of turn. He was
No,
invited to a university.
I am telling you my view.
Okay.
Raghuram Rajan. No, but when he was on a political issue, the way when he was governor, he was talking on politics, he was talking on intolerance, he was talking on so many issues. So political agenda is there. Why Arvind Subramaniam, Mr. Arvind Subramaniam, when he is not CA, he is talking that the
that's
data
the question
is not
I want
correct.
to ask you.
When he was
you've
chief
actually
advisor
taken the
that
words
time,
from my mouth, Mr. Agarwal. Why are all of these people talking once they leave their tenure and they're safely in the United States?
I'm
Does that
telling
mean
you
that
the
their
fact
voices
of
are
the
not
case.
heard when they're in India?
No.
And in government, part of the system.
No, when they have got the post, they should resign earlier. Then they should resign if they are not being heard. Enjoying 3 years, the chief economic advisor is not a small post. A governor of an RBI, if you say the independence of the governor has been maligned by us, so what institution have we built? Don't we have faith in the institution that we have built for democracy in
Pooja,
70 years?
Pooja, you want to respond
What is
to
the
that?
logic? I can't understand.
Okay.
Ki
Pooja,
you are
respond to that.
denouncing your own institutions and
Quick
putting the
response.
blame
Quick
on a
response from
country
Pooja. Quick response from Pooja, and this is one-
leadership which is
Pooja,
for
this
5
is- this
years
is the point that
and
has
not
been-
blaming for
One-
70 years
got
of
it.
leadership.
Got it, Mr. Agarwal. Got
If-
the argument. Let Pooja
if
respond.
our
And this is
institutions are
actually an
not
argument
free-
that has
No,
been
let me
made very
finish.
often.
If
कि तब क्यों
our
नहीं बोला?
RBI
1 minute. This is a question.
for
This is a question
70
which is
years
raised
we have
before.
nurtured an institution and not able to make it free and put the blame on 5 years of governance.
Okay, 1 minute.
How
Let's not go into 70 versus 5 again. It's a very tired old
are saying
argument.
this.
But let me get Pooja to respond. Yes, Pooja.
No, I am telling you.
Mr.
No,
Agarwal, let
Tamanna,
her
I am
speak now,
saying
please,
our
sir.
institutions are independent.
I heard you.
These
I heard you. Let the
individuals-
other participants
These
respond.
individuals are working
Yes.
with an agenda.
Yes. It's an agenda, says Mr. Agarwal. But now one of them is Abhijit Banerjee. He just won a Nobel.
I believe in RBI. I am not questioning RBI.
Okay. Raghuram
I believe
Rajan.
in
The guns
election
are trained on
commission. I do
Raghuram
not
Rajan
question
currently.
RBI. I
Yes,
do not
Pooja
question
Mehra.
Election Commission.
I think Mr. Agarwal, what he has said right now is a complete demonstration of what ails economic policy in India and why no institution is able to deliver what it's supposed to do. The thing is that without fully understanding what the critique, and this is not criticism, what the critique is being put forth in extremely professional manner by trained economists with best interests of India in their mind is always, it somehow manages to hurt the ego of the ruling party, and they seem to be very thin-skinned about these things. For 80 years or 70 years,
You are taking my
not
questions on the wrong side.
Let her just finish, Mr. Agarwal. Let her just finish.
You are interpreting
Let her
me
just finish.
wrongly.
Let her just finish.
in the last 70 years or 80 years or whatever it is, there were many governments, they were all criticized. Some very obnoxious things were said about sitting prime ministers, but nobody reacted the way, we see the reactions now. And I think it is in everybody's interest, and especially the economy's interest, for the focus to not be on how we can get hurt by this, how such and such thing is going to make me feel, that I'm not being respected. I don't think those are the key matters. The key issue is, if in the 90 things that somebody has said, 10 input could be good for my economic policy and my economy, I'm only going to focus on that. How does it matter whether what person's political views are, whether the person has criticized me or not? Why can I not have a tunnel vision and focus only on what is good for my political or for my economic policy?
Okay.
That
I have to wrap.
You are talking.
I have
Tamanna,
to
10
wrap.
seconds.
Okay, I have to wrap.
Tamanna, 10.
Gopal
10.
Agarwal, because he's representing ruling party, and it's 2
No,
versus
no.
1 will get 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds.
I'm saying that we are listening, we are open to ideas, and the blame that we are not listening is not correct. The finance minister's husband is criticizing the government and see the situation. So you are saying we are not listening, we are not giving space. So this is the kind of liberal atmosphere we are working.
That is, I was hoping you wouldn't bring that.
You cannot say we are
I was
not
hoping
listening.
you wouldn't bring that up, and because you're giving me an
No,
opportunity
I
to
want
say
to bring it.
it
We
doesn't
need the
matter.
correct
It
narration.
doesn't matter. Husband and wife can have different points of view. They're both
We
individuals.
are open to criticism.
And that is not a great generosity.
Yes, so
that
we
is
respect
what
that.
our country
We are
stands
open
for.
to
We
that.
all have open views. You don't have to agree with each
Not a
other like all of us
generosity.
don't over here. Okay, thank you
but
so
if
much.
you criticize us,
Thank
we
you
can
so much. I'm
mention it.
completely out of time. I've been told 3 times now to wrap up, so I have to wrap up. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us this evening on the India Development Debate. But we wrap with a very, very big congratulations to Abhijit Banerjee and the entire team that has won the Nobel Prize for Economics. Thank you for watching.